Hey everyone, so this is Backstage IMG and my name is Karan and I'm going to be the host along with Dr. Priya in today's episode. So first of all, before starting everything, I want to introduce our new member to our new podcast, this podcast. So her name is Dr. Kavi and she'll be introducing herself right now.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Kavi. I'm an international medical graduate from Nepal, and I'm done with all my steps and will be applying for this year in September for internal medicine. And thank you for having me, guys. I'm so glad to be here. We'll be back.
So we are happy to include you, Dr. Kavi, in our podcast. And now moving to the main topic of the podcast, it's all about the USMLE steps and how and we are going to share our journeys in today's episode. So first of all, I will like to start with Dr. Darshni. And before starting everything, like my first question to Dr. Darshni will be, Darshni, when did you take your step one and your step two? And do you want to share about your timelines with us?
Hey Karan, of course, sure. So I took my step one exam during my final year of MBBS and my step two exam about 4 to 5 months right after my internship. That is when I took my step one and step two. For each of my steps, I took a considerably long time to prepare because I'm generally someone who takes the time to go over the concepts and be make sure that I'm learning the right things, and I like to refer two or more resources, so I take a lot of time, in contrast to those who can get through stuff done quickly and have like a shorter dedication period that they have for writing steps exam. um, I took a lot of time personally because I have a slow pace, and I knew that I have a slow pace, so I started my journey considerably earlier than I was in my second year. Yeah, so that's my timeline. I started my preparation in like the mid of second year when I went through my step one topics along with studying for my step two university exam. My second year university exams. And then for my step two, I started right after internship. And yeah, that's 5 months later, I took my step two.
Okay, so that's the timeline and that's great.
Mm-hmm.
And based on that, I just have one question, and it has it's a two-part question.
Mm-hmm.
So my first part will be like when you started in your second year
Yeah.
and then took your step one final year, was there any difficulty that you faced that you want to tell us about, or and second first question was what was the advantage of you taking step one while you were in med school, and because we know that you took your step two just after completing your internship after 4 or 5 months. So of course there will be like step two is more focused on clinical knowledge. So the doctors who are working since few years after graduating, they will have a better clinical knowledge compared to the ones who have recently graduated. So was this point a disadvantage for you while you took your step two?
Okay, so that those are great questions. Breaking it down, firstly, I would definitely say that it was advantageous in a way because I took my step one during my med school, because my concepts are pretty fresh, and it was comparatively easier for me to navigate through the concepts. And since I just learned pathology along with just learned anatomy and all those things really did help. I think I would dread to relearn all of those again if I'm starting my prep after internship. Like those are stuff that are pretty volatile as well. So it is definitely an advantage when you do it in med school because you don't easily forget some stuffs, or short-term memory, and they help you. But on the contrary, there's also a disadvantage in the fact that I started my preparation in my second year and gave my step uh, finally in my final year. So as you know, I would have to also had to take my university exams, so that there were definitely breaks in between, and it wasn't a continuous journey for me. And those breaks does affect when you think of it like running a marathon and you take breaks in between. It really messes up your momentum. So that was a disadvantage as well, because you would be running in a great pace and you would want to get done with your exam, with your step, and then you have your university exam, and now you have to learn stuff for your university exams. So that was definitely something that feel like definitely hampered during my preparation. And coming to your other question of how it must have, if my fresh knowledge right off the bat helped me in step two, I would say yes. And for all the listeners who are listening in, I think my biggest advice would be to try to schedule your step two as closer to your step one, because that really makes a difference as well. There are many questions in step two that are like a continuation, or rather like it's a second part question of what you studied in step one. So it definitely helps when you take them both within a short period of time. Since I gave my step one in my final year, and then this entire COVID fiasco happened, I didn't really have the mental strength to study for my step two right off the bat after giving my step one, because I gave my step one, I had to write my final year university exams, and then I had COVID and I was just completely exhausted. So I took a break and then did what I can and started my prep post internship. But I definitely think it would have benefited more if I wrote my step two closer to my step one. So that's my biggest piece of advice that I would give.
So I think Darshni made the right point that by saying that step one and two preparation are good. Like it gets easier once you are the if the knowledge is fresh, especially for step one if you are if you are just completed your first and second year. But it can get difficult to manage along with your university exam. So I think that's a fair point. And now I'll be transferring my now the further episode will be hosted by Dr. Priya, and she will be interviewing Dr. Kavi and Dr. Vishal for their preparation. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Priya. I like to start with Dr. Kavi. Dr. Kavi, can you tell us when did you take your steps and how much time did you take to complete the steps?
Well, comparing everyone in this group, I think I started too late. And going back in time, I started during when the COVID started, and it was around September 2020. It was too late, but I was working after my graduation, and I thought I was in confusion, but I started when I thought of it, I started as soon as possible. So took my steps in March 2021, step one, and then consecutively, I took all the steps as soon as possible. But I think my journey would be like I started very late, and which I don't think I would suggest anyone. But even if someone, I'm just saying this to the listener, even if someone is late and they are in confusion, like if I should start or not, I think they should
Yeah.
start as soon as they thought of it. Because knowledge is never a waste. Even if you want to not continue with that journey, you can just omit it, but start as soon as possible. So that's what my journey start like. So.
Yeah. So when did you take your step two after March?
Oh, I took my step two in December 2021, and then I took my step three last year in September.
Oh, you're done with step three. Okay.
Yeah, thankfully.
Mm. So you want people to start early
Yeah, I was.
during the med school. That's the mistake you did, right?
Yeah,
That's what
I
you're saying.
think being a first person, first generation of medical person, I came to this knowledge quite late, and when I started, I was not even sure, so I was very confused. So confusion should be omitted, and they should start as soon as possible, even if they are not thinking 100% of start continuing that journey, because knowledge never wastes. That's what I believe. So start as soon as possible, even if you're not willing to
Yeah.
in the
How was the preparation period for step one and step two was like for you?
For me, I was working and studying both. So for me, initially it was not that tough, because I was going with a resource. As it happens to be stressful, little stressful as the nearer the exam date come near, the more stressful you get, because you have to manage and you have to saturate everything at some point and give it to the very stressful during that. But I would not say mine was very tough. I was able to take time off from my working place. They were pretty supportive as well. But while since it was Corona, so I was not able to take
Yeah.
my time as expected from my work. So yeah, it was tough in the middle, but it was okay. It went well.
Yeah, but still you're done both steps in 1 year. That's so cool.
Yeah, it was pretty hectic to be honest, but I did it.
So I have just one question that I wanted to ask both Dr. Kavi and Dr. Vishal, because that was the it was based on my own difficulty that I faced during my step two. So as Darshini told that she like Darshini, I also took my step two just after completing my internship, and in step two I realized like while preparing that clinical knowledge and having a clinical background is really important. I had a clinical background while I was doing my internship, but since you guys had like also Vishal was working in Saftarjung during that time, and Dr. Kavi was also working. You both had a lot of clinical knowledge while you were doing steps. So did it help while doing the preparation for the CK especially, not for step one?
Vis-
Yeah, Kavita, go ahead.
I think Vishal, you may proceed for this now.
Okay, sure, sure. Thank you, Karan, for the question. Yeah, definitely the clinical knowledge helps. So the more cases you see, because it happened to me actually. I had seen patients in real life, and I had the same kind of cases in the exams and Q banks. So obviously that's gonna help, definitely. But the point is, like you guys mentioned, that the period between step one and step two. So what I did was wrong. So I gave my step one in my internship, and I gave my step two 1 year after my internship. So there was a big gap. So although clinical knowledge is important, is definitely is important, but the foundational sciences which you're learning from step one, so you're gonna forget those stuffs while you're preparing for the step two. So get clinical experiences. What I would recommend for someone, like if they're aiming for the step two, they can do is either they can get clinical experience in India itself, or they can come to the US, do an observership or externship, know how the patients are, the all kind of systems. So they are more used to the Q banks questions, the way they ask the patients are presenting you to the complaints. So in that ways, like you can actually, it's helpful for the exam, but I would say don't too much of clinical knowledge will take obviously certain amount of time, but a limited if you have a limited amount of experience and your gap between step one and step two is not too long, that's a good combination too for the step two examinations.
I see. That's actually a very good point.
Yep,
Thank you, Dr. Vishal, for your
sure.
opinion and answer. Dr. Priya, you can continue asking Dr. Kavi if you have any other questions, or you can ask Dr. Vishal now if you want
Yep.
to interview
Yep.
him.
Thank you, Karan. Dr. Kavi, you want to address anything about this?
Yeah, I think thank you for this question. Actually, I have the similar kind of opinion as Vishal. I do believe, yeah, clinical knowledge has played some part in CK and all, but I definitely think the gap shouldn't be much more than expected, because the foundation is a step one. Step one knowledge does help in step two a lot, so the gap shouldn't be much more in step one, step two. As soon as you give the clinical knowledge, I don't think it plays a major part. It does help, but not the major part. So yeah, I think the faster you give the exam with step one, the better it is.
Yep. Thank you for your feedback. But yeah, it's same for me too. Like clinical experience is good, but still we don't want to take much time between step one and step two. So yeah, I can understand that. So come to Vishal. Dr. Vishal, can you please tell us like when did you take your exams? How much time did you take to complete the exams?
Sure. So I gave my step one in my internship, but I was starting preparing during my third year of medical school. So I didn't have any mentor. So I didn't knew what the exam was like, and I was reading textbooks during my final year and my pre-final years. I wasn't doing Q banks. So when my internship started and I saw the syllabus, the examination. I just gave some NBME free 120s and just to see a score. So I wasn't even passing. So I realized the biggest mistake I did was not doing Q banks from day one. So if I would say like now, second thing is first is always start Q banks from day one. Second thing, how much period should someone give? So the times when we guys have gave the exam, there was a two-digit score, and the score of STEM one was so important. But now things have changed. It's pass or fail. So don't spend too much time because we guys have to spend because STEM one was a deciding factor at that moment if they have a score. But now it's pass or fail. So I actually took 8 or 9 months of like preparation to give my step one, and that was a disaster because if you think more, if you're preparing for the exam for a longer periods of time, it's gonna decrease your efficiency.
Yeah.
Second thing is yes, and second thing, schedule the exam in advance. What we do is we are started preparing for the exam and we just waiting for the time, it goes, I'm going to improve every day and just 3 months, 4 months pass by. Don't do it. Just take a date and stick with it. Because there's a performance, the peak of the performance. When you will feel that you had the peak, just give the exam because the performance is going to decline over a period of times. So don't take too much. For me, I would say like 3 to 6 months are good, and it's like Dr. Kavi mentioned, give it as soon as possible. And one advantage that we like someone can have if they are giving the step one in the internship is now if someone has passed let's say the step one, by the time then they're graduated to the medical school, now there's a clarity in their life. Okay, I'm going to pursue the USMLE journey. Once you graduated and then you're giving the exam, then you're in the dilemma whether to should I give the exam or not. So there's a lot of confusion in your own mind because your peers, your colleagues are pursuing other things, maybe PGs in your respective countries, right? So that is another issue.
Yeah.
And one more thing that I would say, like, and the third thing is the resources. So QBanks is the most important things because starting the QBanks from day one is gonna help the most.
Hmm.
Second thing is on the internet there are a lot of resources like the you can just look at everyone is uploading everything. So just get the free 120s and use some of the website to see what the exam looks like. Secondly, when my step two, I gave my step two 1 year after my step one because like I couldn't give because like gave my exam during the March of 2020 and there was COVID at that time, so we don't have exam centers that time. So
Yeah. For
so
six to
we
eight
were
months, exam centers
yes
were not
exactly,
open. Yeah.
that is correct. But I would have given it earlier, but it was a non-foreseen situation. But I would recommend like don't take a long gap between step one and step two because then what you would feel is you have to start from the scratch. Once you graduate, your obligations is going to increase. You have to do a job, you have to like do things, and it's life, the struggles of life are going to increase. So you make sure that you're done with the step two. Just give it, maybe you can give it 4 or 5 months after step one. That would be the best time. And concerning the clinical knowledge, so obviously clinical knowledge helps in the examination, there's no doubt, but putting the time on clinical, too much clinical experiences for just for the sake of the exam is not worth it. So maybe a limited amount of experience, like Karan mentioned in an internship, and the foundational concepts you have studied, and you can hit the exam and get a good score still. So I would say like don't take too much for your step one, given the fact that it's pass fail now, and give you because step two is now gonna be the deciding factor as of now what we know. So just try to give your step two within a realm of let's say 6 months after your step one. Don't extend the step two dates for too long, thinking that you need more time to prepare because the performance is gonna decline over a period of time. So that is what it is. Priya.
Thank you, Vishal. Thank you so much for your
Yep,
valuable advice.
sure.
And now moving to Karan.
Hi, so I took my step one while I was in third year. So I just passed my second year exams, second year university exams, and then I was already in the dedicated. I had prepared for my step one since the starting of my second year, so it had already been 1.5 year since I had started my journey. So that was a very big advantage for me because you know that like my pathology, my microbiology, my pharmacology, like
Yeah.
all the main subjects of the step one were still fresh in my mind. So like while I was in dedicated, I was just skimming through the books. I was not even reading the whole thing because I already knew that. But one thing that the mistake that I made was when I started in my second year, I didn't know what to read. Like if you see all the like videos on YouTube or read anyone's journey, the main uh, books that we read for step on our first aid, Pathoma and U World and all these things, right?
Yes.
Because I was in second year, I was so much in like I wanted to learn so much and I wanted to do everything that was in my hands. I referred to so many books that I got confused after 6 months. So and after 6 to 8 months, I just realized that the materials that everyone goes through are more than enough to like prepare for the step. So this was my one mistake. Another mistake that I realized while preparing for step one and step two, like Dr. Vishal mentioned, that after a certain point when you have reached your peak, the scores start falling down. So that you have to keep in mind because like the fact that you can choose your own date for the USMLE exam is both advantageous and disadvantageous to people. So advantageous means that you can go at your own pace, and disadvantageous means that since you can choose it, some people, uh, like even me, I used to delay the date again and again so that I could give my exam at later date, thinking that I will be more prepared, but that actually isn't true. So once you are in the appropriate range and once you decide that you have done everything you can do to prepare for like for the step preparation, every question in UWorld, NBMEs, everything you have done, that's the correct time, and that is the time when you've reached your like peak, and that is when you should take your steps exam wherever you are. So like you have to maintain that kind of balance and realize that this is the right time for me to take the steps. So this was the major mistake that I made. These two were the mistakes that I made during preparation. And yes, like while I was preparing for step two, I took my step two just after my internship, like Darshini did. And it was a 3 years gap between my step one and step two, and it was such a like it was not a good experience for me because I had forgotten so much of content from step one. But luckily, I managed to read everything and skim everything up, like go through all the material for step one before starting my step two prep. But it would have been a more advantageous fact for me if I had just given it after my step one exam. So that's my journey, and that was all the mistakes and all the like advantages that I had while preparing for my exams.
Yes, Karan. But I say that you are like among all of us, you took exams in perfect time. Like after third year, your step one, and after internship, your step two. There is 2 years gap. It's I know that, but still, after step three, after third year, taking step one after third year is the best time, as far as according to me. Like
So I wanted to just address this fact that for everyone, I can understand that like, and this is actually a topic that I wanted today's episode, or I wanted to bring up in today's episode, that whenever you take your step one or step two, at whichever point in your life, there is going to be some factors which will play an advantage for you, and there's going to be some factors which will be as disadvantages for you. So it's better to focus on the advantages you have because, like for me, the disadvantage was like the same as Darshini, that I had to manage everything along with my university exams. So after taking my step one, like at that time it was score based system. It was not pass fail when I took my step one back in 2019. So like and I was in third year and I had to prepare for my otolaryngology, ophthalmology, and preventive medicine exam within a period of 1 or 1.5 months. So it was such a stressful factor for me. But yeah, so the disadvantages are going to be there. The stress, like at different points of life, you are going to have different stressful factors contributing to the your preparation. Maybe job, maybe university exams, but uh, like you should believe in yourself and you should focus on all the advantage the things that are in your advantage and take your steps at that time,
yeah,
right?
yeah. Yes, that's right.
All right. And I want to discuss one more thing is the test taking anxiety. You so I have like met a couple of people during my journey, which like every one of us, excuse me, has an anxiety, about the exam that whether we're gonna pass or fail, or what will be our score. So try to calm down the anxiety because I'm a victim of this phenomenon. Like my NBMEs was in a good range, a good scores, and my real exam was not in that score that I was expecting because the anxiety kills your performance. So just try to calm down before the exam because there is a lot of hype created about the exam that it is very difficult and all those things. But if you're prepared for a long time, just believe in yourself and it's not gonna you're gonna do good. So if you're like prepared for the exam for a long time, so just try
Yes,
to control
Vishal.
your anxiety.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yes,
It's all about like sitting 8 hours before exam. That's it. It's not about questions, doing difficult questions. Not at all about that. It's all about like
sure.
putting all our mind in the exam for 8 hours continuously for 8 hours. That's the big thing, and we had
I
to
think
get proper sleep before day.
I think
Yes, and Priyaki, yes, you
that is the
can.
right thing. And
Mhm.
since Priya has been interviewing everyone, I would like Priya to tell her about herself, and then we can know about her journey too.
Thank you, Karan. So I took my step one in September 2021. As I told you guys before, I decided to pursue USMLE during my internship. So I extended my internship in 2021 and then took step one in 2021 September. And then I tried to get visa and rotations before graduating, but I couldn't get it all because of COVID and all those things. So I wasted 3 months for that. And after that, I did my extended internship for 3 months and I graduated after that. After that, I took my step two in November 2022 and I came to US for the rotations in November 2022 in the same month. So it was so stressful for me during my step two preparation. I had to prepare for travel and I had to prepare for step two. It was so stressful. And that gap I took between step one and step two is like 1 year, but I haven't studied anything for 5 months because I was busy with doing getting the visa and rotations and then doing my internship, completing my internship. So I wasted a lot of time. I would advise people to take a 6 months solid preparation for step one if they're like after internship. If they are planning to take after internship, I advise them to take 6 months solid preparation for step one. But now it's pass or fail, so maybe 3 4 months is enough. And for step two, 4 months solid preparation is enough.
I think that's a good point, Dr. Priya, that a person should be well prepared for before giving their exams. And before ending our podcast for today, Dr. Kavi would like to tell few points before ending the podcast. Again.
Okay, thank you, Karan. I think I'll just summarize whatever points we have discussed. I'll just give few points I think which is very important. Like Visal said, using tons of resource and not done with QBank as soon as possible. Do that as soon as possible and start NBME, and that mock test will definitely help. And practicing the mistakes and trying to specify what is the weakest part of us is more important rather than going through all kind of content. And be specific about the resource. You doesn't have to go with all resource. And the second point I'd like to add is while doing QBank, I have heard a lot of people saying that it takes a lot of time to reading explanation. I do understand that it does take a lot of time reading explanation, but you have to be again specific about what the question is about trying to teach. And then the third point I'd like to add is we may think that spending too much time is okay, But no, that's not the case. Like Vishal as said, and Karan also added, as soon as you take the test time, the more focused you'll get, and giving exam during the peak time is very important. And yes, the last point that from my mistake I'd like to add is starting too late is not good. Start as soon as possible, like Karan, even if the gap between step 1 step 2 is 2 year. Giving